There we go. That's what I was worried about. Okay. So, well, if you look behind me, you'll see hold on. Lonzo is no longer with the Bulls. He's with the Cavs. And then you have now Collin Sexton, who got sent away. So the lone jersey that still matters on my wall is Lowry's sitting in the middle. Just had to get that one off my chest. Let's see. Come here. Right there. That looks good. We've had ourselves a time, boys. Breaking things down into the simplest pieces, I believe Lonzo got traded 1-for-1 for for Isaac Okoro. It was good, Dallin. And it was definitely not something that was on my bingo card for 2025, but a lot of this stuff wasn't. So we'll just take it as it comes. That said, the draft actually went pretty decent. I'm not irritated with anything that the Jazz actually ended up doing, which is a bit of a surprise. I feel better about Ace Bailey now, especially since he actually landed in Utah, because that was a big story, him not riding the plane with the junior. But, it was all right. Do you think Lowry gets traded, or will they try to keep? I'd like to think that they keep him. But at the same time, I'm not 100% sure. It's definitely more likely that they keep him than there's a laundry list of guys that are probably going to get traded before him. John Collins is on the clock, and I know for a fact now Jordan Clarkson has to be on the clock. The interesting thing, though, was there had to have been a better trade partner as far as value is concerned when it comes to trading Collin Sexton. And the fact that they didn't get anything better just tells me that they didn't try hard enough, and they honestly just could care less. Danny just wanted to go ahead and make something happen so that he wouldn't have to worry about it. Now, you said Danny got more moves up his sleeve. Surely he does. I would assume so. This one makes sense for only one particular reason. I'm gonna go ahead and switch over. This only makes sense for us because obviously there were a lot of minutes that need to be available coming into this next season. And Collin Sexton was the easiest man out. Last season, he averaged how many minutes? Well, he was only like 27, 28 minutes a game, but still in the games that he played a substantial amount, he's taking up a large amount, and he played in 63 games. They did hold him out of quite a few because obviously he was balling out of his mind. 18.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, almost a steal, shooting 48% from the field, 40.6%, from the 3-point line on 4.3 attempts, and then shooting 86.5% from the free throw line. So I want to say his true shooting is like 58, 59%. Yeah, 58%. No, excuse me, 59%. Yeah. So he was obviously doing his job the way that he needed to. But the issue is they got some rookies, and their rookies need minutes. And as much as we may love Collin Sexton for everything that he has been for the Jazz, it's one of those things where it was kind of inevitable that this was one of the more likely things to happen. I definitely thought Jordan Clarkson was going to go. He was going to see the door before Collin, but I didn't see Collin going out this way. Now, I understand because he loses his value to a certain extent because he is on an expiring contract. This is his last year. I want to say he's making like $18.6 million this year. So that's part of it. So there's no guarantee beyond this year that he re-signs with whichever team that they trade him to. However, like I said, he's shooting 48% from the field, 40.5% from three-point range, and 86% from the free throw line. So he can flat out shoot. He's not a defensive liability. Yes, he's shorter, and most people will end up viewing him as a two guard. But to me, he's a perfectly reliable backup point guard since nobody seems to want to give him the opportunity to be a star like he was at one point in Cleveland. And I understand why that is. But in that same vein, I feel like this going to Charlotte kind of suits him because they've been looking for somebody to reliably put behind LaMelo. Obviously, they have Brandon Miller running that 2 spot, but they haven't had a reliable punch off the bench, unless you want to say Trey Mann. And I think that he has yet to re-sign with the Hornets. I'm pretty sure he might not be a restricted free agent. I think he's an unrestricted free agent, but they're still waiting for him to, make a decision on that. But even with Trey Mann in the fold, it's one of those things where LaMelo's so terribly injury prone. Matter of fact, let's see how many games he has played recently. Because last year I know he was healthy for a second and then he was just like gone. LaMelo. Survey says, yeah, so healthier than his past 2 seasons, but still not healthy enough. And he's shooting 40% for the field, 34% from three-point range on 11 attempts, which is egregious. As much as LaMelo is a gifted passer and whatnot, 7.5 assists. No, surprisingly lower than I thought. This is ridiculous. That's not winning you games. 11 3-pointers, and you're only hitting 33, almost 34%. That's kind of ridiculous. Kuzi, what's good, my guy? Presentationer, what's good, my guy? You said, hey, Nurkic, don't want to see him play any minutes. All right, so Nurkic is in an interesting spot, and I don't want to sit here and call him buns because I remember there was a point where he was pretty solid. But after the 2020 started, I don't remember him doing anything notable, and it makes me feel as if so the logic that I came up with while I was pondering on this was we ideally wanted to take on an expiring contract. We have a bunch of young guys. We just drafted 3 guys, and I want to say we signed somebody right after the draft. Now, I don't know. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, so I'll probably figure it out during the summer league games. But you have way too many young guys. And yes, you're clearing up minutes by trading away Collin Sexton, but you can't add somebody that's going to take minutes from your young guys still. That defeats the whole purpose of trading Collin Sexton. Even if you say, okay, by bringing in a big, well, you still have Taylor Hinks that's going to come back healthy. You still have Lowry. You still have Walker Kessler. You still have Flip. You still have Kyle Filipowski. So you have and you still have John Collins on your roster temporarily as it stands. So you have a packed front court as well. By adding Nurkic, yes, it provides you with some level of depth and veteran presence. And I guess you could say he could be more of a model for Walker Kessler when it comes to being a passing hub, because in DHOs, he's pretty effective. In the high post, he does a lot of work there. And I want to say he doesn't average too many assists. Let's see. Nurkic. I put H. Nurkic. All right, let's see. I knew last year was a down year for him regardless. He only played in, no, he went from Phoenix to them, so he played 51 games, 32 starts. Oh, yeah, he was mud. Yeah, so 2022 was like his last really up there year. You could argue that 2022, 2023 was a decent year, 13-9, 51% from the field, but his field goal percentage has steadily declined. Well, at least this past year. 9 points, 8 rebounds, and 20 minutes a night. That's not bad. And you could argue that because he had to get used to a new system, it kind of switches a lot of things up. He's not particularly a great free throw shooter. Admittedly, he's still better than Walker Kessler by like 4%, I want to say, on average. No, it's actually a little bit more than that. Walker was shooting in the 50s last year. 3-point range, I thought he was a little bit better. Okay, yeah, there was a point where he was a little bit better, but that's apparently not consistent anymore. So yeah, there's nothing that he really does significantly better than Walker Kessler, and he's definitely a defensive liability by comparison. He doesn't move his feet well on the perimeter. He's not a rim protector by any stretch of the imagination, and honestly, he's just gonna be there. Now, there's nothing wrong with that because he's on an expiring contract. That's the one thing that I do like it. That's the only silver lining. That and the fact that Collin Sexton is actually in my city, so I get to actually watch him now. But trading in this way pissed me off because we also gave up a second rounder. Admittedly, I don't care for the second rounder because it's 2030. I want to say it's the best one between us and I want to say the Lakers, I believe. But it doesn't really make sense why we had to throw in a second rounder to convince the Hornets of all teams to take on somebody who shoots 45% from the field, 40% from three-point range, and 86% from the free throw line. Is tenacious on defense. It literally is the embodiment of that. His nickname is the Young Bull for a reason. Obviously, we love him because the heart, whether you're in a winning game, whether you're in a losing game, whether you're tanking, whether you're planning on winning, he gives you the same level of intensity every game. So it's always going to be a quality rep whenever he's on the court. So the fact that you had to trade him for an expiring contract and the best you could get was Jusuf Nurkic, and you also had to surrender a second round pick later on down the road, just seems ridiculous to me. Now, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, Jusuf Nurkic is buns, but he's not nearly what Collin Sexton is today. So I don't think it would drastically surprise me if during the season he played more than 30 games and averaged more than like 10 minutes a night, right? Because in my head, I'm thinking Patty Mills type production when he was with us. If memory serves me right, he played like 14 minutes a night in the games that he did actually end up playing in. So I don't see a world where Jusuf Nurkic can eat up minutes on our roster. Now, in practice, being a crash test dummy, yeah, I think he can do that very well. But that's it. And I've seen a lot of analysts in there talking about, oh, well, Collin Sexton is now was a negative trade asset because they had to put in a second round pick. I refuse to buy that. Nothing about his game says, oh, he's bad. He even improved his playmaking and has been substantially better because that was the biggest knock on his game. That and his ability to add a change of pace so he wasn't just literally beelining to the rim every time. He's more patient, he's more methodical, and he understands offenses and how to be productive within a system a lot better than he has at any other point in his career. And he's shooting career highs. So you can't convince me that he's a negative asset. That just doesn't make sense. Because earlier on in the season, we were talking about how bad the Lakers wanted him. And all of a sudden, oh, he's buns. All of a sudden, he's only worth Jusuf Nurkic. Matter of fact, he's not even worth Jusuf Nurkic. We also have to throw in a draft pick. That isn't going to matter in the grand scheme of things, but we still have to throw in a draft pick to make the Hornets, I'll say it again, the Hornets take on a quality player. And there's analysts all on Twitter and all on IG and everywhere just saying, oh, well, they waited too long to trade him. I believe there was a better opportunity out there, but we just didn't like what was on the table. And you could argue that we could have potentially got a better player, but the goal of this was not to get a good player. It was to offload Collin Sexton's contract and get him out of the way so that he's not potentially bogging down minutes, because you can't justify to the league why you're not going to play Collin Sexton. Are you going to fake an ACL tear or something? Like, you can't do that because we already got fined for sitting Larry Markkinen at one point against the Wizards, which was just bizarre to me. Like, he's been in and out of the lineup with back injuries that have persisted through his entire career. So why you picked a game on a random Tuesday night against the Washington Wizards to be like, hey, that's enough. You can't do that. Crazy to me. But again, that's neither here nor there. I just think that this trade was kind of pointless. I thought, if anything, the Hornets would give us a draft pick with Jusuf Nurkic, because we're taking on garbage, right? Now, admittedly, they have no front court depth anymore because they traded Nick Richards to Phoenix last cycle. They just sent Mark Williams over there. And I want to say they drafted what's his name, but they don't have front court depth. So them trading away Nurkic really just, I guess it does nerf them, so to speak. But come on, you're the Hornets. You got to be healthy. You have to play defense. You have to make sure you fix all your systematic problems before we really start nitpicking about how you need a second round draft pick later on down the road to attach to a player that's better than the player that you're giving up. They gave us a wad of chewed bubble gum, some pocket lint, and we gave them a $10 bill and a quarter. It's not, if this was alchemy, this would be the most lopsided equation ever. This is not equivalent exchange. You said, where would you have preferably wanted to see Collin go? Honestly, I wanted to see him go to a team that was going to be playoff bound or had the ability to be, competitive. Now, he's still going to look good on the Hornets, but the thing is, he looked good on the Jazz. But it didn't matter because we were the Jazz at the time. We weren't the Jazz that was, ascending into playoff stardom. We were just the Jazz. So it kind of sucks for him because he's playing, I don't want to call them meaningless games because at the end of the day, he's getting paid millions of dollars. He's in the NBA, the highest league of basketball in the world. But he's on a team that has no real pathway towards being a championship caliber team in the next year or two, right? He spent 3 with the Jazz, and word on the streets we're going to tank again this year. Even though Austin Ainge sits there and says, well, tanking isn't in the plans. We're going to revamp everything and make something happen. Then he trades away Collin Sexton. So I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. And then the press conference, admittedly, it was ill-timed. One reporter asked if he would comment when he was sitting in the room with the 3 rookies. They asked if he would comment on the Collin Sexton trade. He said, nope. And just sat and stared at the camera. I said, all right, smart ass. But, it's a business. It's a business decision. He has whatever plan he has. Danny brought the family member in because he thinks that he's going to help elevate or do whatever it is that Danny was hoping to do and has been struggling to do so far. But I just don't like this trade. I understand it from the standpoint of we want to get Collin off the books because Collin would earn minutes. Jusuf Nurkic is not better than Walker Kessler. He's not better than Lowry. He's not better than healthy Taylor Hendricks. And I would argue he's not better than Flip. So he's definitely not better than John Collins. So even if we kept all 5 of those guys on our roster going into the season, he's the 6th man in the rotation. So he doesn't matter. You can always make the argument that Collin is going to outcompete almost all the young guards on the team because in my opinion, he was the best one. He was the most efficient one. And he was the most consistent one from an effort standpoint and just the production that he gave us on the court on a night in, night out basis. So it makes sense that we had to end up trading him. Because now you're going to give Keyonte George, I believe, his last opportunity. If Keyonte sucks this year and he shoots 30%, like 38, 39% from the field and 33, 34% from three-point range again, the door. Because there's no reason to force feed him minutes if he's not improving. Walker Kessler last year improved. We said, dang, I wish he would dunk the ball more. You're a 7-footer and you refuse to dunk. What is going on here? You're bobbling rebounds. What did he do? He started actually grabbing rebounds. He started dunking the ball. His points went up. His rebounds went up. And he just looked like a stronger player on the floor. Obviously, the defensive impact had been there, so we weren't really concerned about that. We wish he could shoot, right? That's the next part of his game that will determine whether or not we can keep him long-term and play him big minutes, or if he's going to be in the playoffs looking like Rudy Gobert sometimes, because there's limitations to what you can do with a big that can't shoot worth a lick, right? 55 or 56% shooting from the free throw line is not going to save us. And in late game situations, if we need defensively capable guys on the floor, yes, you could argue Taylor Hendricks gets slid to the 5 and Walker's off the floor. But at that point, you can't pay Walker too much money because you're bogging down the books for somebody that has extreme and obvious limitations to where you can use them, which is fine, but you just also have to keep that in mind. I think that we're going to see a lot. We were already going to see a lot of minutes from the rookies, but I think that this just kind of shows that it's a lock. To me, this locks in and guarantees that Keyonte either will show that he is growing into a veteran and he is getting better, or he'll show that he's just kind of cooked. And it's fine that if he is, we'll just let him go. It's not like his career is going to be over, because it's not that he's completely terrible. He's just not progressing the way that he needs to. And maybe a new situation would unlock and open some new doors for him, and just, allow him for the opportunity to showcase what he really likes to do a lot better. Because we tried to make him a point guard. I said that he wasn't going to be a good point guard. He wasn't a good point guard. And then we got Isaiah Collier, who, while turnover prone and can't shoot, he was objectively a better point guard option. So you have that. You bring in Ace Bailey, and Ace Bailey didn't want to be here to begin with, and, the ages and all that sort of drama. But he finally boarded the plane, landed in Utah. He's been happy and smiles and everything like that. And could it all be an act? Perchance. But it could also just be him starting to buy in and trying to buy in. And if that's the case, then fantastic. That's what we're here for. That's what we want to see. And I believe that he does have the ability to do tremendous things. Tremendous things. And let me see. I want to say I had his profile pulled up. Yeah, John, I'd still need to go over some more of his tape, but I actually didn't disagree too much with this. For the analysis, they said, he's an efficient 3-level scorer at Wisconsin, using his size, athleticism, and advanced skill to get wherever he wanted on the court. In the NBA, he must focus his skill set and develop an elite trait, which is likely his three-point shooting. He shot 38.8% on three-pointers and 90% on free throws on almost 7 attempts per game, which is actually really, really high. And he's also 6'5", so I guess there's a little extra height there, a little bit more to gamble. It was interesting that they compared him to Donovan Mitchell, But this was the funniest part because they said they compared him to Chicago's Taylor Horton Tucker, who we have previous experience with playing on the Jazz, and I don't think that he's THT. I genuinely don't, because THT's jumper wasn't as reliable. I didn't believe in his jumper as much as I'm expecting to be able to believe in his jumper. And for Christ's sake, he shoots 90.9% from free throws on 7 attempts a night. So it's not, he's getting fouled once a game. He's getting fouled 3-4 times a night and hitting those. And that if that's any indicator, as it tends to be, of shooting prowess, he's going to continue and only get better from there. I could see him being 3-and-D from what I saw on tape. It was interesting they brought up Max Strus, and if that's the ceiling, I would not be mad at all, because Max Strus definitely has some very reliable moments within him. Let me see. What did we say? Would I trade Kessler for Malawach? No, not yet. Malawach is interestingly raw in certain areas, and his offensive skill set, while it could be argued that it's better at times than Walker's, I don't know that his ceiling is guaranteed to be higher. And that's the thing that I kind of grappled with a while ago. And there was some interesting drama between the teams that were supposed to be drafting him, and apparently a draft day trade that was supposed to be going on that didn't end up happening. I didn't delve as far enough into it as I actually needed to get to the bottom of it, but it was interesting nevertheless. But, he landed where he landed, and it's gonna go, I guess. I was originally going to I was waiting to make my draft analysis video because I thought there was going to be a trade. I did not think it was going to be Collin Sexton getting traded. So the fact that it was just, it happened. That's about all we can do. He said, "Oh, it was good, Jeff." He said, "There's no interest in Clarkson at all. I guess Sexton had to go." That does seem like if we traded Jordan Clarkson in this situation, it would make sense, because you can argue his efficiency has been so terrible over the past 2 seasons. It's concerning. He's been so injury prone, and while we did hold him out some healthy games last year, right, and everybody just glosses over it, he still hasn't been a good player. He hasn't been a plus player. So if you sat there and said Jordan Clarkson's the negative, I would say, yeah, I believe that. I think he could still score the basket, and on a, let me think. I was going to say the Timberwolves. I don't like him on the Timberwolves, though, even though his defensive liability nature could be easily masked. There's a couple playoff teams that could definitely use him and have him as an extra scoring punch. And heck, you could even send him to like a team like Miami, for all I care. But it does. I'm not at all shocked that he doesn't have value. But people sitting here and just looking dead at a camera, or going right there and typing out on their phone with their fingers saying that Collin Sexton is a negative trade asset is ludicrous to me. And I'll stand by the fact that I think this is a bad trade. Is this the worst trade of all time? No, because like I said, it's one of those necessary evils. Yes, we love Collin Sexton. Yes, I love Collin Sexton. I have his, I got his Cavs jersey and his Jazz jersey. And I'm going to buy the Charlotte jersey as well, because what he brings to the game is everything that I love watching about basketball. I don't care. Now, obviously, I want my teams to win. But if you're going to lose, give me something to cheer about in the loss. Let me believe in the back of my mind that there's still a chance, even if it's 0.5% of a chance. Let me believe that you're not going to be out there quitting. Let me get my money's worth, because these tickets to games are absolutely ludicrous. That's a whole different topic for a whole different day. I'm sorry. But if you're going to sit there and take your family or go by yourself to one of these games, you should feel like you're spending money well spent. And when you have guys like Collin Sexton that give you 130% effort every single night, diving for loose balls that they have no chance of getting out of bounds, and sitting there contesting any shot that they humanly can, not giving up any ounce of space when they get into a switch in the mid post. And yes, he's going to get scored on. He's only 6'2", maybe 6'3" in sneakers. But he's got that dog in him, and he shows it every single time. There's never a play where I sit there and I say, what was he doing? What went through his head? Is he just asleep? That doesn't happen to him. The energy is contagious, and we saw it through our team throughout the years. So the thought process that a guy like that can just be, tossed to the side pisses me off. And the fact that so many commentators in the space are sitting here saying, oh yeah, it makes sense that this was all they could get. No, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why we gave up a second rounder. And I don't want to harp on it too hard because, again, it is just a second round pick. And there's not enough information about, second round picks across history being, phenomenal players, even though there's a lot more hitters these years because the quality of basketball players is just simply higher. But it also relies on situation and overall just your basketball IQ, your intangibles, and what your basketball acumen and resume say you've done up to this point because it shows what you're capable of doing going forward. I don't know. Ooh. Bless you. Thank you. Welcome. Because you said, honestly, the Nurk trade is an A+ for the Jazz. Even though you'll give a pick, you'll get expiring contract, and you ain't going to play. It's hard to say we made Charlotte better, though. Because you could argue Charlotte has been a better team. Like, when they had a healthy front court, the Charlotte Hornets healthy last year were probably a better team than us. They just can't stay healthy. So it doesn't matter how much talent they have. You could argue that they're going to be better by default because Collin Sexton is kind of an Iron Man, and we had to hold him out of games. I think he got injured and held out one time. Was it a wrist injury, I want to say, where he missed 6 games. But overall, he's been extremely durable his entire career. So in that respect, you could say that. But the culture of the Hornets is their biggest issue. And their lack of a desire, honestly, sometimes. That's why I just don't really watch Hornets basketball like I used to growing up. Because in the days when you had Al Jefferson and Kemba Walker and Michael Gilchrist and Gerald Henderson and Ramon Sessions, there was some lows. There was some definite lows. But there were also a lot of games where when we were losing, you still had some honor, some pride in being a Hornets fan. Because, yeah, we're bad, but, we're not out here getting washed by everybody. We're not just getting manhandled and thrown around. I look at the Hornets team these days, and they just let it happen. They shoot 23% from beyond the arc, shooting almost 40 attempts, and they're just laughing and giggling in press conferences. That would bother me. That's not the basketball that I enjoy watching. And yes, you get paid millions of dollars to have fun and play a sport that you love. That's great. That's how it should be. But when you're losing the plot, so to speak, and the winning becomes if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't kind of mentality, it's not fun for anybody. And then you have the audacity to charge just as much for your tickets as some of the better teams in the league that actually, give their fans something to enjoy. It's disgusting to me. It's appalling. But, maybe Collin just goes in there and grabs the locker room by the balls and goes crazy. And they all just lock in and decide to actually try to dive for loose balls, to try and contest shots, to recover on defense, to communicate on defense, to hold each other accountable in practice. If that happens, then fantastic. But I've seen the Hornets do many things and a whole lot of nothing at the same time. Let me see. What's good, Jeff? You said still salty with the Jazz Hornets trade. Yeah. Definitely not better than Flip. Okay, yeah. I said that, and in my head I was thinking about Flip's numbers from this past year, even though he did have a lot of limited games at certain times. Yeah, I'm still going Flip. I'm sorry, I'm still going Flip. Plus, he definitely shoots a lot better. His percentages may not be as high as they potentially should have been last year, but Flip is definitely a better shooter. You said, I agree, Jazz dumped Ochai when he seemed to plateau. Keontae has gotten way, way more chances and way, way more lenience. Absolutely. We've been force-feeding Keontae George minutes and opportunities, and I have not seen nearly enough to justify what we've been providing for him. And maybe that's me. Maybe I sound a little bit like a hater there because I do want him to succeed because we're giving you an opportunity. But we just haven't seen enough return on investments yet. And this is that last year. Just like last year, I said Walker Kessler needs to be better or else people will deem him as being expendable. And once public opinion starts to set in and everybody starts looking at it, confirmation bias is simply you believing something, so you look for stuff that validates what you feel and what you believe. So if the public opinion says Walker Kessler will never be able to shoot, he will never be potent on offense, His coverages and pick and roll defensively are always going to be mediocre. The only thing he'll ever be is a glorified rim protector with weak hands, just like Rudy Gobert. Everybody's watching what's going on with Rudy Gobert in the playoffs. They're like, yeah, Rudy Gobert is definitely good in this, in this particular situation, but there's this laundry list of other problems that he also has in his game that can't be fixed very easily, at least. And you don't want Walker to be put in that vein. So my thought process last year was he has to get better. So now the badge gets moved to Keontae George. He has to get better. There is no exception. We just brought Ace Bailey. Do you think you're better than Ace Bailey? I don't. Ace Bailey don't want to be here, and I think he would still wash you. Not because you're trash, but because I just think he cares about the game more. Call me crazy. Call me crazy. He said, combo this combo with Melo and Collin Sexton. I'm in a way reminded of the initial pairing of Luka and Kyrie. That's actually a really interesting take. That's a really interesting take, actually. Yeah, I do like that. They just don't have a competent big that's really paired with them unless you want to count Miles Bridges, but I don't think anybody wants to count Miles Bridges for that. A forward, yes, but glass cleaning and all that, which is necessary, nah. But yeah, that's almost a 1-for-1, low key. Low key. Not saying Collin's at the level of Kyrie offensively, but the pairing does make sense. I see where you're going. Crazy that Ainge is wanting the Lakers to give up more than 2 firsts for Kessler. Looks like Ayton is on his way to LA now. Yeah, I saw that the buyout news. I don't know if it's official now or if it still has to be finalized, but yeah, it looks like DeAndre Ayton is going to go ahead and solve the Lakers' big man problems. And the thing is, he doesn't even have to be great. He just has to be serviceable. They're going to spoon feed him reps. They're going to he's going to have one of the greatest job securities in the league because he's literally just going to be the best center, the best natural 5 they've had in years. Like the last competent one that still kind of struggled because of his age, but was more or less reliable was Marc Gasol when they had him years ago. But like Anthony Davis didn't want to play the 5, but was forced to because they could never find anybody to trade and pair with. But yeah, if he does, and I believe like if I was giving it chances, I'd probably say 70-30 split that he ends up going to the Lakers. I don't know any other team that would be desperate enough to be like, DeAndre Ayton, please come here. Please let us sign you. I don't think there's many teams that would sit there and reach out that far and care enough about him and his skill set. Now, he's not a bad player. Let's see. I used to be high on him when he was coming out of college, but I didn't think he was better than Luka. I thought it was crazy that he got that nod. Yeah, it's not terrible. Durability of a washcloth, but 30 minutes of action, 14, 10, 16 and 11 the year before, 18 and 10 his last year in Phoenix. It's not bad. He's not really the greatest of passers, right? And honestly, you could argue that besides these 2 years as a rim protector, he's been god awful. Don't let this fool you. It's only across 40 games, and this is 1.5 across 32 games, but at least it was more believable because he averaged 18 and 11 to go along with it. His efficiency has been hot dog water on less attempts than literally all but one season of his career. And of course, he still can't shoot threes. Never learned how to. And he got worse as a free throw shooter? What the how? Going consistent 70s all the way down to ew. Ugh. Now that's his worst true shooting percentage. No, second worst. That was this season. He played 38 games. So yeah, he's going to be serviceable. He's going to be just enough. And if this workout Luka that we've been seeing in the offseason is real, and it's not one of those Zion Williamson, he's he's giving us his best Ben Simmons cycle impression, where he looks really, really good working out in the offseason, and then as soon as he comes in the season, it's grits. Then DeAndre Ayton will have one of the easiest jobs in the league because Jackson Hayes, as much as people rag on DeAndre Ayton, Jackson Hayes is god awful. Oh my goodness. Watching him play basketball sometimes pisses me off, and I forget that he's a 7-footer because he never puts on any weight. He is athletic, but at the same time, it feels like his body's made of glass and it feels like he can blow over with a gust of wind. It's a whole lot going on with him, and it feels like they tried the Keontae George method on him last year, and it didn't work. Like, at all, because they tried to spoon feed him and force feed him into situations that he may not have been the most comfortable with, but they trusted that he would be able to kind of hold his own and grow into it as time progressed. It just didn't happen. So DeAndre Ayton, as long as they can land him, which, like I said, probably 70% chance that they do, substantial upgrade. And if you can have a game where Jackson Hayes is playing no more than 15 to 18 minutes, say, in relief time, and you can have 30 minutes of DeAndre Ayton, that's cool. Cookies and cream. He said, hope this makes Ayton wake the F up. This is quite a fall for a number. Terrible fall. Absolutely. For me, the only plus Nurkic brings the additional $400,000 saved at the end of the season. Yeah, realistically. Flip's going to shoot well. Rookies rarely shoot well. Give him 2 more years. Honestly, call me crazy, Steven. I think Flip might surprise some people this year. Part of it's going to be because Taylor Hendricks is not supposed to be ready to go at the beginning of the season with a full extra offseason of NBA prep work, building onto the season that he had last year. Speaking of which, I don't want to sit here and make it seem like he was just okay, because I know he was Lepowski. I know he was pretty solid, but I don't remember what his... Yeah, 35% from 3. I love that. Hold on, how many field goal attempts? Leisurely 7. That's not crazy or anything. And 3-pointers a game, 35%. We can do with that. We can definitely live with that. Now, the free throw percentage is a little bit concerning. Granted, he only took 2 per game. 65% is still like 10% better than Walker Kessler, hilariously enough. And, of course, he's not necessarily a rim protector, as you can tell by his 0.3 blocks, despite starting 27 games and playing in a total of 72. But, the one thing I do remember about Flip that really stuck out to me, no matter what time of the game it was, when we subbed him in, he was ready to go. And to be an NBA player and come in off the bench and have your number called and being ready to be efficient. And not only do you shoot shots, you shoot them confidently and they go in more often than they don't. To be able to be a rookie and do it is a whole different thing. And the confidence that he plays with and the creativity that he plays with sometimes, because he's actually surprisingly fluid, a lot more fluid than people actually give him credit for. Now, he's not as liquid as AD when healthy, but he's a lot more crafty. He has an interesting layup package to him. And, he's not the most athletic, so he's not going to sit there and bring down the hammer on anybody. But he gets the job done. And he feels like it. Him playing looks like he knows he belongs on the court with people. And when it came down to him being a rookie, I kind of graded him as a rookie, but I was able to look at him as more objectively just a basketball player, just an NBA player. And it's very rare that I'm able to do that with rookies, because I always have to say, dang, he made a stupid play right there. That's a dumb pass. Then I have to be like, well, it's his first year in the league. He's still trying to learn the ropes. He's only 30 games in. Or he spent half the time this season in the G League. He's still trying to work his way through his progressions. Those kind of moments. But with him, a lot more often than not, he was making the right pass. He was making the right read. He was screening really well. He was rolling really well. When he was open, he shot the ball with conviction and confidence to the tune of 35%. Now, that's not going to knock anybody's socks off, right? But you're not going to sit there and just leave Kyle Filipowski open in the short corner. You can't do that. And he showed that game in and game out. Defensively, you're going to attack him. If you can get him in the post, you feel a lot more confident in that. But he's not going to be a cone on the perimeter like a lot of people assumed he was going to be. And I can only assume that he's going to get better. And if him being able to come off the bench and still be impactful like he was last season gets brought over and carried over into this season with, like I said, more prep work, more work on that shooting, he's only going to average more. He's only going to be more confident. I don't think he's ever going to be at a point where he's overconfident, but he's always going to feel like he can make something happen. And there was so many times where his creativity just impressed me that I feel like he's going to be one of those potential cornerstones unless something absolutely crazy happens. Here's a thought. If Keontae flips spectacularly, expect him and Clarkson getting shot together? Flop spectacularly? Yes, I could definitely see that. If Clarkson manages to stay on the roster because Collin Sexton got traded, that would kind of surprise me because that would say more about Walter's minutes than anything, because Walter, the way he played in college, if you guys go back and watch particularly the March Madness games, he shoots 38, 39% from three-point range, but the length and the depth at which he shoots from and his shot selection is so questionable, but it goes in so many times. He's one of those guys where he'll shoot from borderline the half-court line. When somebody tries to reset the offense and swings the ball back to him from the wing, he'll shoot from borderline the logo. And you're like, what kind of shot is that? And then it goes in and you say, well, it went in. And I really like that about him because he has a lot of poise. Now, I want to see him do it at this level before I sit here and just, actually glaze him. But I'd be foolish to sit there and say, yeah, he's just like every other guy in this draft, because I think he's a better shooter. I arguably would say he's the best shooter. Maybe his overall percentages aren't the highest per se. I want to say Trey Johnson was somebody whose percentages were higher, but watching him shoot from a technical standpoint, and then also taking into account the type of shots that he took, if he took conventional shots, his percentages would be a lot higher. I would argue that he would definitely be a 40% shooter from three-point range. And he shot like 7 3-pointers a night. So it wasn't like he was doing it on 2-3 attempts. No, he wanted the three ball. And if you thought you were forcing him to take it, no, that he was perfectly fine. He was sitting at home with those. And I want to say he shot like 38.5 or 38.8% on them overall. So it was comfortable. It was backyard shooting practice. Let's see. Ron, you said, let's trade Kessler to the Lakers. No. Walker Kessler will not be going to the Lakers. I'm sorry. Do I like LeBron? Yes. But I also like Walker. And I like what Walker's doing here. And I don't want to see Walker in a Lakers jersey. I just feel like that would be ugly. I don't want to see that, dude. Aiden on the Lakers would be so gross. The fans are going to eat him up. He's going to stop trying the first week. The thing is, he won't really have the choice to stop trying because of the expectation that he's going to have from LeBron and Luka. He's one of those people where he's honestly very mentally fragile. Like to the degree I was actually concerned. You have guys like what's his name? Phoenix Suns, Devin Booker, who sometimes in interviews or even amongst other players in open runs, just like off NBA courts, he gets very easily flustered, or he answers questions a certain way and he gets kind of like he acts like a tsundere character in an anime. But with DeAndre Ayton, it's like he's so easily swayed by what other people tell him he is. It kind of concerns me. So if you're a Lakers fan, I'm not going to say coddle him, but it would behoove you to give him a little bit of time to get acclimated and not just fry him right out the gate when he has a game where he, scores 6 points and has 7 rebounds, because DeAndre Ayton is privy to have those games. Now, if he can actually be the lob threat that I think he can be, even though he's not the most athletic guy on the floor, I think it'll be capable. One thing that absolutely cannot be tolerated, and he will absolutely get fried for, though, is if he stays a cone on defense. Lord knows, if you can't go out there and guard on the perimeter, and you can't go switch heavy that way, you have to be able to protect the rim. You can't average less than a block. Dare I say, he needs to average about like 1.5, 1.6 blocks this upcoming season, if the Lakers are going to have an extremely skilled defense. Like, yes, they have Vando and all those other guys, but you need an interior that's rock solid. And this, to his credit, this is going to be the one opportunity where he can change his entire career around. Because just as we know, he can be destroyed. Like, if you go to LA and you play bad, or, you don't fit like Russell Westbrook did, people will crucify you like you are the most garbage player on the planet. But if you go there and you play really, really well, they glaze you like you are the second coming of Jesus. People talk about Austin Reeves like he is just the most amazing player on the planet. And he's not bad, right? He's a pretty solid young guy. But he also is really freaking inconsistent, right? He might have a game one night where he goes off for 27, shooting 66% from the field. The next night, he'll give you 11, shooting 30% from the field. And people don't talk about it both ways because they get sucked into the games that he plays really, really well. And then when he doesn't play really, really well, somebody else is more bad than him, so they take the heat off of him. With DeAndre Ayton, he's not going to have that choice though. Because if they sit there and the Lakers lose and people look at the stat sheet and Stephen A. Smith, literally anybody on any news station sees he has 4 rebounds, 5 rebounds, no blocks, no steals, 3 shot attempts, they're gonna fry him, and then his career will effectively be over. This is make or break it time for DeAndre Ayton, and that's if the Lakers get him. Like we're playing the lovely scenario, the magical imagination game where we assume that he just goes there, which I believe it is likely that to happen. But even though it hasn't, we're going to play it that way. This is his last chance. If he gets bought out by the Trailblazers, he can't hide. You can't hide on the Lakers. He has no opportunity to do that. He has to be his best self. And even when he sucks, he has to sit in that press conference, take the heat from the reporters, say, I have to get better. I will be better. And then we need to see him be better. Because if he can't do that, under the microscope, he's been getting away with being cheeks for forever. But it was okay because he was on teams that they didn't matter. Or I don't want to say they didn't matter. Them losing games people didn't care. You can't go to LA where they're trying to have an arms race. They just fleeced the Mavericks and I don't want to say, yeah, they fleeced the Mavericks and got Luka over here and had a subpar ending to the season, even though you had honestly one of the greatest coaching postseasons I've seen, especially for a rookie coach, with JJ Redick. But it exposed the fact that they need a big. So if they say you can beat, it's like the draft back in the World War days. We need you. So if he comes in there and he, for lack of better phrasing, he just shits the bed, well, his career's over. Nobody's gonna want him after that, because when they needed you most, they spoon-fed you. You have LeBron James and Luka Doncic on your team. If you can't, as a center, average double figures this upcoming season, you're trash. I don't use that word very often, but you're trash. You can't have 2 of the most gifted passers the NBA has ever seen across history as a 5-man and not get 5 baskets in a game, playing 30 minutes of action. Now, if for some odd reason he only plays 20 minutes, then you can make that case. But I don't believe that's going to be the situation at hand. So it's going to be very easy for him to fail. But if he does his job right, and he's even 75% of the player they need him to be, people will all of a sudden act like they weren't just calling him terrible before. They'll actually talk to him with a certain level of respect and appreciation. And I think that it's kind of overdue in a way. But he's done so many things where it's hard to love him. What's good, Aiden? My fault. I have some thoughts about DeAndre Ayton. Oh, see, Jeff, yeah, you hit it right there. What Ayton lacks the most is heart. Give him the heart Sexton brings. Ayton would be a top 20 center conversations. Top 20 all time? Arguably, because he has a polished post game. That's something that most people don't really talk about. He has a polished post game. He just, I don't know if it's a thing where he just believes that no matter what anybody else says, they're always right, or if he just feels like for some reason he can't do anything right when he really wants to. But either way, he should be definitely a lot better than he is. It shouldn't be as lopsided. Should Luka still be the better player? When we look back at past drafts, yes. But it shouldn't be as lopsided as it is, because it's getting out of hand. He said Ayton genuinely was in talks for top 5 centers in the league before he lost all his heart after the finals. Yeah, that finals run was something serious. After Chris Paul left, they were never the same. The front office fell apart. Devin Booker fell apart. The whole team fell apart. And now they're in purgatory. He said, I'm not mad at Ayton to the Lakers, TBH. I think anyone can reignite his fire. Is Luka maybe the delusion talking? Could be, but either way, I think that's the best opportunity for him to revitalize his career and put on the map that, hey guys, I'm still worth money. I deserve to be paid. I deserve minutes. I'm not a draft bust. He can say that right there, because the Lakers are going to be under scrutiny the entire season, like without a doubt. So if he can't, well, then he's just going to be struggling, and it's going to be what it's going to be. But I believe wholeheartedly that he has the opportunity to step up to the plate and get the job done where it matters most. Like you said, I think the players that would be around Ayton on the Lakers would be good for him. I'm just worried about his sensitivity towards harsh. Yes, absolutely. That microphone. They say pressure bust pipes and makes diamonds. So lately he's been letting his pipe get bust. Wow. Oh wow. Um Hindsight 2020, that was a terror. That was terrible to say. Um, you know, the pressure has been cooking him lately. So yeah, that was terrible wording. So, hopefully he has with the opportunity to be a diamond, to be put under the microscope and given a certain level of appreciation and being able to showcase his skills. Maybe this will be the one time where he finally steps up and says, I'm tired of being bad. I'm tired of being criticized. I just want to, and I think JJ Redick might be actually the coach that can really get it out of him. If JJ Redick can't get it out of him, I'm afraid to say I don't think anybody can, because JJ Redick is so willing to entertain things that a lot of other coaches wouldn't. He's so fluid in his thought process where he'll sit you down and have a conversation with you. He said there's been conversations, or there's been interviews where he's talked to bench players on the team, players that are going to get 7 to 8 minutes, in the postseason, that were playing maybe 15 to 18 minutes in the regular season. And he's open and honest about why they can't play in certain matchups. He communicates things. He can go over film with them. And just that open transparency, because a lot of coaches, they say, this is the lineup we're rolling today. So-and-so has this amount of minutes. So-and-so has this amount of minutes. We'll filter you guys in, not a minute more, not a minute less, and we'll go from there. The Tom Thibodeaus of the world, if you will. The Doc Rivers of the world, if you will. Where even if their methods are losing them the game, they know nothing else but to stick to their guns until they get laid flat. JJ Redick is extremely dynamic. So I believe that this would be the most ideal circumstances for him. Same old Suns fan. He has so much potential. Yeah. He said, and that's why watching him saddens me now so greatly. Mm-hmm. I'm not mad at Ayton to the Lakers. CBH, I think. Oh, wait, I just misread that. Dun, dun. Walter steps up. I want to see it. For a team that has touted as having an empty cupboard, the Suns actually did well for themselves this offseason so far. Yes, actually. They did overload on centers. They don't have a true point guard. They have like 4, I guess, listed shooting guards if you want to count Bradley Beal in that, because I don't view him as a point guard, and it's been incredibly inefficient with the offense with him running at point guard. They don't really have a solid small forward or power forward, I guess you could say, because they traded away Kevin Durant. But they certainly have bigs, or they certainly have 5s. So we'll see what they do. It's going to be very interesting because they have the opportunity to reinvent themselves this upcoming year. Whether they do or not is an entirely different question, though. Need to trade Keontae. The Nazi Spider. I give him. Could he get traded before the trade deadline is my question. Because when it comes to Keontae, right, we'll pull up his numbers just for the sake of comparing. Keontae George. All right. So obviously, 75, 67. This is a healthy sample size of games. He played more minutes this season than he did last year per game. Obviously, the points went up, but that was because his overall shot attempts went up. Up 1 rebound, up an assist. That was actually pretty solid. Steals and blocks basically the same. Increases overall field goals by 3. Literally hit the exact same percent. You know how hard it is to hit 39.1% of your field goals 2 years in a row with a difference of 3 field goal attempts? That's actually kind of impressive. His 3-point percentage did kind of go up, but he took 7.5 attempts. Honestly, all of those shots were not good shots. Some of them did look like good shots and looked like they should have fallen, but they just didn't fall, and I respect that as well. From the free throw line, this is the thing, right? 84, 81%, 3 attempts, 4 attempts. That tells us that he should be able to get that 3-point percentage up some. And the fact that it just hasn't really happened yet is kind of concerning, but because he still shoots 80% from the free throw line regardless of it, it tells me that he should be able to still make something happen. He should still be able to evolve, I guess. I guess it would be the most reasonable way to put it, even though he hasn't shown us what that looks like yet, honestly. And playmaking wise, it was solid. The point guard responsibilities should have never been thrust upon him. I knew it was going to fail from the beginning, but in the spirit of competitiveness, you have to give that guy the opportunity to prove that he can't do it. Because I'd rather us know for certain you're trash at XYZ than you to be good at Y and X, but not be good at Z, but we never test anything out, so we never know. When we get in those situations where those assets that you're actually good at could be used, we don't even know, and we don't put you in positions to actually execute because we never even figured out whether or not you could do it. So he's one of those guys where he has a lot of upside. He has a lot of potential upside. I would be lying if I sat there and said, yeah, he's mud. But I'm also not going to sit here and say, look you guys in the eyes and say he's good, because he's not yet. He's borderline Jordan Clarkson. And speaking of which, Jordan Clarkson. Never mind, Jordan Clarkson shot higher from the field. Womp womp. And higher from three-point range? Still? Golly, you know how bad you have to... Granted, it was only over 37 games, but... No, they shot the same amount of field goal attempts. He shot 13. He just shot 13 just like him. Interesting. Don't think Keontae beat him in his overall free throw percentage. Yeah, I mean, he'll have an opportunity to make something happen. I don't know when it will, but, it's possible. He said, I'm shooting 44% from three this season. Obviously, nowhere near NBA competition, but I'm happy. Hey, anytime you can get that many to fall, it's a lovely day. It's a lovely day. Glad we have my watch and our other draft day doings. I'm just used to being let down by our front office. Yeah, and understandably so. I'll never forget, people criticized me when I said that the reason why the Suns were not going to be successful was quite simply because their core was 3 iterations of the same person at different heights. And they're all injury prone. They've all had, maybe you won't want to call it severe injuries, but they've all had their history with injuries. And none of them are defensive aces. So you pour all your assets into those guys, those 3 guys. If one of them goes down, well, now you're relying on, at the beginning, it was like, Grayson Allen, who was a really solid shooter, but, there's limitations to what one guy can do. And as they went deeper and deeper down that bench, and you realize Bull's not going to get any minutes either, there's a lot of things. Bull's an interesting, I want a 30 for 30 on Bull whenever his career abruptly ends, because that's the way it seems to be trending. Because there's so many things that I thought he would have been able to do once Kevin Durant went over there. My first ever video, I want to say, that blew up was in reference to him being on the Suns and Kevin Durant joining him over there. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to have the opportunity to see Bull take a step forward for once, because he has Kevin Durant, literally the prototype for a 7-footer that can move like that, right there in the locker room with him. He's going to get so good. And then he just didn't even get minutes. I was like, dude, what? It was weird. You said, a bit off topic, but do you think anyone will have 100 points in a game again? It's possible. The likelihood of it is going to be extremely slim, though, because we're talking about somebody that has to, number one, you're going to have to take a ridiculous amount of shots. Secondarily, is going to be incredibly efficient. So we're talking about guys like, your Malik Beasley's, ironically enough, that are facing, their little legal issues, or a guy with the efficiency of obviously like a Stephen Curry or an Anthony Edwards, who literally after one offseason said, you know what, guys, I can shoot now. Watch this, and started wetting the basket up. It has to be somebody that is a star player on their team, though, and takes a large number of threes. So can it happen? Yes. But is it likely to? Probably not. If anybody could, this is going to sound like it's too early to say, but if anybody could, I think Wemby could. I'm very high on Wemby. I'm very high on that Spurs team. I don't talk about them as much as I want to, but oh my goodness, I love watching the Spurs. What do you mean they have Wemby, Rookie of the Year? They have Stephon Castle, who I wanted. I wanted Stephon Castle so bad on the Jazz last year. So bad. The defensive upside, the way he thinks offensively, his comprehension of systems, his willingness to be selfless and selfish when necessary. All the things I wanted in a wing for us was Stephon Castle, and the Spurs got him. And then they knocked things out. Then they knocked it out of the park. This draft actually. Hold on. We can talk about this real quick. As a matter of fact, Spurs draft picks 2025. All right. Now here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Dylan Harper obviously was on that Rutgers team that didn't have a whole lot of structure alongside Ace Bailey, but he was it was like a my turn, your turn kind of system more often than not, but he was the heart and soul of the team more often than not. He has the ability to replace De'Aaron Fox at some point when it's necessary. So the fact that you could sit there, you just got De'Aaron Fox, you were sitting there foaming at the mouth thinking about what a healthy Fox, Stephon Castle, you'll have Devin Vassell, you'll have Wemby. All these guys will be available to you. And they're young. They're competent, but they're so young. Your oldest guy is De'Aaron Fox? Oh, you're cooking with hot grease. And he arguably next year wouldn't even be your best player. Wemby would be. Wemby's versatility defensively, I just need him not to be in. I just like the worst thing that could happen. And I need the basketball gods to really lock in. I don't want to see Wemby's career cut short because of injury. I can't. Because I want to be the old head that's talking about how great LeBron was and how great Stephen Curry was and how, yeah, Wemby's cool, but, he couldn't carry a team like LeBron could. 2018 Bron had people shaking in their boots. They they turned Toronto to LeBron. Like, I want to be able to have those kind of discussions combating my kids and then youngins about how tough Wemby is at that point, because he literally has the ability to reach that peak. But his health is going to be number one. The way he plays is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And a lot of people will sit there and complain and be like, oh, he stands out on the perimeter too much. He can dribble. He can actually shoot. Now, he can stand to get a little bit more efficient with it, but overall, the shots that he takes aren't bad shots. He's a team player. And defensively, even if he misses that shot on offense, he's getting a stop on defense. He's as a rim protector, the ability to just alter shots. If you sat there and told me you would have about 65% of KD's offensive competency, put it into Rudy Gobert, and then also give him, let's be nice. Let's say Jaylen Brown's foot speed on the perimeter. I wouldn't believe you, because that version of Rudy Gobert will never exist. That's why we call him a liability in the playoffs. Wemby is everything Rudy Gobert wishes he was. He can shoot. You can't scheme him out on defense because he moves too well. He's smarter. You know what? Dare I say, Wemby might be who Rudy Gobert thinks he is in his head. Not in his nightmares, but who he thinks he is in his head. And the Spurs, the way they've drafted and adding these two to your core, when your core was already tough, just gets so much better. And watching them this year, as much as, it's going to be interesting to see how the Jazz end up looking, I'm going to be watching very heavily some Spurs basketball, because I like people that know how to competently rebuild, who basically tell their fans, hey, we're going to be doing this year, and then actually execute. I don't like having, misconstrued conversations of people saying, oh, we're not tanking. Oh, we're not going to be, getting rid of certain players. Oh, people are going to have to earn their minutes in this respect or that respect, only for them to switch over. And I'm not fond of that. And I feel like Austin Ainge already is just kind of rubbing me the wrong way, in the most respectful way possible. I know he's a businessman at the end of the day. He's Danny's son and all that sort of stuff. But it rubs me the wrong way. Right, you said Spurs Jazz for the finals 2028. I'll take it. From Taylorsville? Hey, appreciate that, Luke. Still, there isn't another Jordan. You're going to dislike this opinion. Jordan would be, how do I put this? This is arguably one of my hottest takes that I could ever give. Kobe to me is a better overall player than Jordan. Dare I say, if I had the opportunity to be either Kobe or Jordan and inherit every trait of them, meaning their work ethic and all that sort of stuff as well, I'm picking Kobe. Kobe didn't have the same vices that Jordan had. Now, Jordan's vices get swept under the rug because his team was as competent as it was. And, everybody says the thing about the league being, diluted because there was the expansion. And that there's truth in that, of course. And you could say he had people that were above, that were near the top of their positions at the time on his roster. You could say that. That doesn't take away from the fact that he was still a phenomenal player and he was heads and shoulders above everybody else in his time. And he was the prototype. So you must always respect the prototype, no matter how you feel. Right? That's just me personally. Like, it's one of those things where Ray Allen, for example, will always forever be regarded as one of the greatest shooters of all time. Reggie Miller, one of the greatest shooters of all time. Stephen Curry, in order to pass those guys, had to be so much better that it was unquestioned. But despite that, we still say those two guys are still some of the best shooters the league has ever seen and will ever see. And there could be, you could argue Malik Beasley is right there, or might be above them now. Me personally, I would like to, extrapolate and say, well, if Ray Allen played in this era and he was allowed to shoot as many threes as Malik Beasley is, he would shoot more and hit more. But he didn't, so there's some push and pull that goes into that. Still, as much as I have respect for MJ and his level of competitiveness, the person that they say he was, as far as off the court and as a person, as a personality, and then also me living most of my time in Charlotte and watching how he's handled things as an executive. And then, of course, there's the rumors of him like losing a bet or something, and that's why he actually decided to sell the majority of his shares with the Hornets, because he lost a bet or whatever. I don't know how true it is. Is it worth a thought? Yes. Do I sit there and say, oh yeah, it definitely happened? No, I'm not one of those people. You got to show me documentation that says that, right? He deserves that benefit of the doubt. But for the most part, I think that he's always going to be one of the all-time greats. But if I'm starting a franchise from scratch, there's probably been 4 or 5 shooting guards. Yeah. 4 or 5 shooting guards that are in the same window and talent pool as him alone. Ignoring like positionally wise, because like you could say that Wemby at this point you would rather have on your roster as the person to start your franchise with. Wemby's the first guy since LeBron where I said, how do I put this? I know everybody grades like their top players differently, and everybody's opinion is valid. You have to have something completely outlandish for me to say, yeah, you actually don't know basketball, because I don't really say that about people. But I would say, to me, when I say somebody's the greatest player of all time or arguably one of the greatest people of all time, that means if I had a fantasy draft, right? We're having a 2K fantasy draft. I can only guaranteed pick one player, and I'm starting my franchise with you. The CPU will randomize the rest of my entire roster. The player I would rather have the most for myself personally is LeBron, because of what he can do. Is he the greatest at any one thing? No. I'll be the first person to tell you that. I can give you some LeBron glaze, trust, but I'm going to tell you he's not the best at anything. You could argue that he's maybe the best downhill driver of the basketball the NBA's seen, but that's really it. You could say he's arguably the healthiest and the person that's taking care of his body the longest, but that's not a stat, like durability. Cool, that's fantastic. But John Stockton was also durable. You could say, okay, John Stockton didn't have to be as athletic. He didn't have to. Okay, fine, whatever. you know? But for me, LeBron was that player because he can cover enough deficiencies along with his teammates. But Wemby, watching Wemby enter the league and going over his tape from France, I realized there's always going to be a bigger dog. So for everybody's era, there's always going to be a different GOAT. For every decade, there's going to be a different GOAT. And arguably, I think that we should just do positional GOATs. I think that's a more respectable way to take it because this is apparently a hot take. I would say Steph is the best point guard the NBA's ever seen, but he's not a traditional point guard, so it's hard to sell it to people like that, if that makes sense. Is Magic, more prototypical and everything? Yes. Was he on the Showtime Lakers? Yes. Can never take that away from him. But to me, Curry is the greatest point guard of all time because he demands respect and responsibility in the ways that he should not be able to in today's game or in the league at any point in time. The fact that he was able to win that championship and in the 2010s, it was cool when they had the core that they originally drafted where his second best player, was Klay Thompson at the peak of his powers. And you had Andre Iguodala, you had Dre back when, he was in his infancy of kicking people in the nuts. You could say that. But the fact that they could scheme a system around him and he could literally win you games at the highest level alongside a lot of illegal screens. But then again, everybody gets away with illegal screens now, It was just something I've never seen. And I, like me being a person that enjoyed watching LeBron so much, every time I saw Curry, I hated Curry. Every time I watched Kevin Durant play, I hated KD. But as I've gotten a little bit older and they're getting older and they're entering their twilight years, I spent so much time, I don't want to say not appreciating their game, but I spent so much time disliking them or feeling like, their opinion has a very limited, their abilities have a very limited scope of value to the point where now I'm watching them play and I'm like, they're just so great. Got a little emotional there. Ooh. And when I feel that, I understand what the nostalgia is for people that either grew up watching MJ or grew up watching Magic or even grew up watching guys like AI or grew up watching Kobe. Because when you're somebody and you grow up being when you grow up and you have these players that either from a social standpoint, off the court, they're just so cool. They just have so much aura, so much presence, so much power. And then you see them on the court and they're just so nice. They're unyielding. They're unrelenting. The thing I will never be able to take away from anybody that's a Jordan fan, and I guess that's the difference between me being a LeBron fan. My thing is I will always believe in making the correct decision, but that will always hold me back as a person because I personally, there could be some things in life that I'm going to be very good at, but I won't try them because I think there's somebody else that I know that's better at it than me or should be better at it than me. So I won't take those shots in the dark. And when I watch LeBron at the end of games, that's what I get out of him. He will always give the ball to the person that will give him the best chance of making that shot, even if it's not himself. But man, I'd be lying if I said seeing games where Kobe will sit there and shoot the lights out. It doesn't matter if he's shooting 15% from the field or 52% from the field. When it comes down into crunch time, the ball better be in his hands. You will live and die by a Kobe shot. I would live and die by an MJ shot. I would live and die by a Steph shot. Knowing Steph, his clutch field goal percentage is incredibly low. But it's because it's just something about being that guy. Everybody wants to be the hero of the story. And seeing these people being willing to step up and take on that charge and saying, win, lose, or draw, I have to be the one that makes my team win. That's something that you don't necessarily get as much with LeBron. And that's why I always will have to have respect for guys like your Kobe's, your Kevin Durant's, your Jordans, all those type of guys. Because when clutch time came down, it didn't matter whose hand was on him. It didn't matter if they were getting fouled. It didn't matter if they were being double teamed, triple teamed. It didn't matter if your best shooter on the court was wide open in the corner. That's my shot. I practice that. I work for that. And it was for example, Carmelo Anthony. Similar thing, Iman Shumpert, him, Jeff Teague, them telling their stories about players is so great to me because there's some players where they just can't tell a story worth a darn. Then there's other guys where they just tell some really nice, flavorful stories and give you all the details. And when Shump's sitting there talking about how it was to play in New York with Melo, and Melo will look him off when he's wide open. And at that point, Shump was a solid 3-point shooter and was athletic as hell. And he sat there in the locker room afterwards talking about, Shump, I know you were open, but I can't give you that pass because I work on that. That's my shot. Like, that's the mentality that I understand with all those peak premier players, that you don't always get the same thing out of LeBron. Like, if LeBron has a mismatch and that's his opportunity, yeah, oh yeah, that's baby food to him. But there's something about being able to sit there and turn on the TV and seeing guys like Anthony Edwards saying, my team can't get a bucket. I keep swinging the ball. That we're not getting something happen. I will shoot this ball flat before I let us go out. Something about that just does something to me, man. Just does something to me. And I'm glad, like, at this stage of my life, I've been able to, I say that like I'm about to be a senior citizen. I'm only 25 now. It's crazy to say that even leave my mouth. Born in 2000, I'm already 25. 2016 was 9 years ago. Yeah, that's enough sad talk. But just looking back on things and being able to appreciate the greatness of players that are like aging in the league, that have a couple more good years left, and just being able to sit back and being like, I don't hate Kevin Durant anymore. I'm not mad at him that he joined the Warriors. Do I think it was a terrific move? No, but that's not my life. Once I realized that Kevin Durant doesn't really give a damn about what anybody's opinion is, he just loves basketball so much. I don't know how I missed that. Like, it's hard to explain, but like, we get so used to seeing some players where they play the game for money. Their contract is the most important thing to them. They'll put up numbers in their contract year where they're looking for the extension, get the extension, and then now they're mid again. Right? We see a lot of that these days, and like, not seeing the passion really sucks. But the one thing that I've always been able to like finally appreciate more about Kevin Durant is realizing we care about rings. I look at people's resume, and if you don't have a ring, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, you're a bad player, but I want to know why you don't have a ring. Kevin Durant sat there and went to Golden State to, here, I got you all a ring. Boom, take it. And then he left, and you could say his teams have been failures since then, but he's still been consistent. Him on the Nets, he was tough. His efficiency was glorious. Him on the Phoenix Suns, he was still tough. His efficiency was still great. He was still switching on defense. He was still moving his feet well. Post Achilles tear as a 7-footer. Before him, there was like 2 guys that came back and averaged, I want to say, within 4 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists of their stats previous to their Achilles tear across NBA history. Him coming back and being able to do that, I had to sit back and say, yo, I'm tripping. Here's a guy that he just loves basketball. He loves basketball like we love basketball. I love watching people play basketball and be nice at the game. He loves being out there and just cooking people. You know what I'm saying? It's hard. It's hard to. I'm rambling. I'm sorry. It's just weird to think about. It's just a thought that I have. Hmm. Hank, you said I didn't appreciate Steph like I should have. I'm glad when I watched Steph go into that last finals and like win, like, I always respected him as a player, but it was one of those things where like, rivalries between teams don't really exist as much as they did before, but like early on in the 2000s, my dad was a big Celtics guy. So by default, I would always root against Kobe. I didn't know why I rooted against Kobe. I just knew we don't like Kobe. So I rooted when they used to face off in the finals and they would have their battles. I hated Kobe. I was like, yo, nah, Kobe got to lose. Da, 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 da. Like I'm going off. But it was one of those things where as we've come into the 2010s and now into the 2020s, me seeing the people that I grew up watching either retire or just, get older and not be the people that they once were. You just sit back for a second, and it really just takes one game, realistically. Like one game where they have a really big statement, and you just sit there and you're like, you don't have to love the guy, right? But it's just like, he's all right with me. And coming to that realization is really impressive. I don't know. We'll see if Ace Bailey has that same mentality. I'm hoping so. I think he wants to. People say they want to compare his mentality to Anthony Edwards. I don't exactly see that same thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if it evolves into that. I think he might be the type of person where he needs to experience a substantial loss. I don't mean like a death in the family type of loss like Anthony Edwards had to experience. I mean like he needs to lose a game or like lose a matchup against a certain player that he feels like he's better than. Like if he faces off, let me think. I don't want to say like a Stephon Castle, but like if he plays a younger guard of that caliber, and he genuinely in his brain thinks he's better than that player, like he should win that matchup, and he gets absolutely fried. I think that would be one of those games that really gets him in that mode, and I think that's what I really want. That's when we'll really see the best of Ace Bailey come out. Just a theory, though. Just a theory. Walter Clayton Jr. Yeah. His shooting prowess and everything, percentages. The best thing about him is that the percentages don't tell the wow, that was bad. They don't tell the full story. Like some guys, they'll shoot like 34, 35% from 3-point range, and you'll be like, yeah, but really, he's a better shooter than the numbers indicate. The brother shoots 38, 39% from 3-point range, and we still say he's a better shooter than those numbers indicate because he's shooting from 36, 37, 38 feet with regular consistency, and the shot's going in. And it's like, he shouldn't need to do that. He shouldn't choose to do that, but he does, and it's allowable because it goes in. If it didn't go in, he'd be getting cooked. The same way we talk about Ace Bailey shooting a lot of contested long twos instead of just taking 3-pointers, right? Now, Ace Bailey also enjoys taking tough shots. He also makes a lot of tough shots. And shooting 45 or 46% from the field in college shows that he can hit enough of them to justify taking those shots, taking those turnarounds. Hand in the face, hand literally touching his face, he'll still take that, and he feels confident in that shot. The numbers back up his ability to be able to do that. And with Walter Clayton Jr., he's one of those guys where I think he is a generational shooter. And I'll be the first guy to go ahead and throw that out there. As crazy as it may sound to say, I think that he can, in his first year, replace the offensive production from a scoring standpoint specifically of Collin Sexton. I think that he will immediately in the rotation be better than Keontae George. I think that he might actually be a year older than Keontae because I want to say he's a fourth year. He was a fourth year. Keontae is. So yeah, he should be a year older than Keontae George, I think, right now. And I think that he will come in and he will outcompete him in workouts in the summer league. That's what I really want to see. And then in the preseason, and he's going to earn those minutes. And of course, we're supposed to be tanking this year, and we'll see how well that ends up panning out. But I think that he will showcase something that he's going to be one of those missing pieces that you don't really expect. Like for the Warriors, when they had Jordan Poole was special because he wasn't a piece of the system the same way Clay and Draymond were to assist Curry in being great. Jordan Poole was his own individual star. He wasn't as bright as Steph was, but he was still a flash. And you could still put him out there and he would create something out of nothing for you. I think Walter Clayton Jr. has the ability to do that, but in a different way because his is more shot reliant. He is a little bit aversive to contact when driving downhill at the rim, but he's also willing to still go downhill. And he's not necessarily the most light in the body. Like he has a sturdy frame. So I think he could put on maybe 5 to 10 more pounds in this offseason. But overall, I love what he brings to this team. And I think that if anybody is going to be taking, 10 shots off the bench, it should be him for sure. I'm thinking right now. No, I'll take it a step further. If you want to divvy up shots and give somebody like closer to 14 or 15 shots off the bench, then it should be him. Because I think Flip should, get some more shots in. And you also have Keontae's probably going to be moved to the bench. You'll have Isaiah Collier, Ace Bailey, Lowry, Walker, and If Taylor Hendricks is healthy, then Taylor. If not, then probably Flip. Um, so yeah, I have a lot of faith in him. I believe in him quite heavily, but it's also kind of unfounded considering he did it against solid competition, but doing it in college and transitioning it to the NBA level is always a bit tricky, especially for smaller guards in today's league. Because somebody that didn't shoot nearly as well, but was kind of like really impressively dominant in a way was, Sharif Cooper. But we all know Sharif Cooper just didn't end up catching on the way that we all, or at least I, imagined he potentially could have. I didn't think he was going to be a star per se, but I did think that if Trae Young could make it and be relevant, then Sharif Cooper joining him over there could be successful because he has the exact same limitations, so to speak. It didn't happen that way though. Excited about Louise? That'll be interesting to see. He said, I agree. The moment Ace gets cooked, he'll take himself more seriously to make sure he doesn't happen the same way again. Tonnage game remind you of? Who's your ceiling playing comp? Honestly, with the tape that I've seen, I feel, matter of fact, we're gonna pull up his college stats before I sit here and say that. ESPN game log. No, I don't want to see the game log stats. Wait, what? Wait, what? Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I did not peep that. I thought it was 5. Okay. 46.9% from the field, 38% on 6 attempts, 90% on 7 attempts. I'm trying to think. 19, almost 20 points, only 1.8 turnovers. That's really, really solid. How many? Is not very assist prone. Not surprising. Overall, how many threes? 200. This is the most of his entire career. 38%, 30. So he's been able to shoot threes. Very convincing increase right here. Holy. All the way up. This 106, obviously 7 for 7. I don't really count that year, because I mean that's an insignificant sample size. But 254 for 231 for 254. Bless. Let me see. Interesting. Is that shot efficiency? What is that? Yeah, scoring efficiency. Okay. Oh, shooting efficiency is over here. The thing is, he's surprisingly quick too, but I don't know how quick he is by comparison to like NBA standards, if that makes sense. That's the only thing. They said THT. I don't see THT because I think he's more athletic than THT. I think he's faster than THT. You said, don't cook me because we know comps can be ridiculous, but Jaylen Brown is mine, his range, and how he plays. Hey, presentation. That's not crazy. That's not crazy to say. I understand. But Luke, yeah, that's not crazy to say, actually. That's not crazy to say. Defensively, he doesn't offer the same level of resistance, but at 6'5", 218, obviously he has his grown man frame. He has his grown man body. He's literally a grown man, seeing as how many years he spent in college. I didn't realize he spent that long at Colorado State. But he's making the most of it now, and he has his opportunity. I really like this pick because I didn't know what we were going to go for in the second round. And the first round, when we sat there and elected to go ahead and go duo guards, was interesting. I did not think that we were going to end up making that trade to end up getting Walter. But when we did, I assumed that we would have had to get a big we would have to get a big or a forward in the second round. I didn't know who we were going to get because honestly, I didn't know what Austin's trying to create, what kind of homunculus of a creation he's trying to build. But I was pleasantly surprised when he grabbed John. And I think that we'll have a stronger scope of what type of player he will be once we end up in the summer league. Granted, the summer league isn't going to be the, greatest the greatest level of competition to compare and say, oh yeah, this is one for one in comparison to the NBA level, because it's not, right? But it's a step up from college because these guys want to be NBA bound. There's more hunger there. Isaton was the last player on the bench mentality. I think he has a high floor and can be a player. I'm willing to entertain it. I mean, and at 6'5", the only thing I wonder, because obviously we have him listed currently as a forward, with him being 6'5", will he be running it to the likes of more of an Ochai Agbaji? Because Ochai didn't really, I don't think we put Ochai in the position to be the most successful version of himself. I just want to make sure that we put John in the correct, give him the correct opportunity, the correct reps, because there's nothing wrong than, lying and being able to say you gave somebody an opportunity, but the whole time they were up Schitt's Creek and around the corner with no paddle, because you put them where they did not need to be. Yes, you gave them something, but they can't do anything with what you gave them. That's not, it's like sending a plumber to be, it's like calling out a plumber because your power's out and expecting him to actually do it. Like, that's not how it works. He can't, that's not in his description. It's not his job description. He can't help you. So you being surprised, oh my gosh, the plumber didn't fix my power outage. Duh. No. But I think that he has the ability to be a high impact help person. Do I think he can be a star in this league? Would be a stretch. Do I think he could definitely be a top 7 rotation piece on our particular team when the time comes? He definitely has the tools to do it. In a shortened playoff rotation, a skill, if you 1-for-1 translated his college metrics to the NBA, he would be arguably one of the best, if not the best, arguably bench piece in the league, right? So with that in mind, I believe he definitely has the ability to develop into that. And you could argue that there's a point where he ends up starting for us. But again, it has to come down to some strong reps and proper ones at that. I only watched Tony's highlights. I could find. I was happy with the pick for a second. Yeah, for the value of our pick, unlike the Nets, we actually did a whole lot with ours. So I was pleasantly surprised with everything that we had going on. Won't hear me argue about it. That's all I got. But yeah, I just wanted to, pop out and chop it up with you guys about it. Well, obviously about the Collin Sexton trade, how I felt about, John ending up getting drafted, because we already talked about Walter and Ace briefly, more so Ace than Walter, for obvious reasons. But, I think we have a little bit of a crisis averted. We should be ready to go, feeling good. And with any luck, we will be seeing a Utah Jazz team that is worth watching, I guess, even in purgatory like we're going to be this season, But thanks for sticking around. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't and you joined, you liked it live. Drop video suggestions in the comments below, or topics for our next. I may do more live streams as opposed to just like still footage, because I kind of like being able to like have a conversation with you guys back and forth, and it also brings a little bit of extra perspective towards things. But yeah, like the video, subscribe, turn on post notifications, all that good stuff. Become a member to get more content earlier than anybody else. And as always, good morning, good evening, and good night, no matter where you're in the globe watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace. Cover the summer league. I could do that. I can definitely do that. I'll see y'all soon.